No, I shut it.
Oh, oh. Yeah. So it's locked, so you on there. Someone's putting that information to me. Yeah, I have. So after you get the ballot, then you don't have to. No, but some scrap paper, so that's good enough.
The packet, so.
But I can't ever find it on my phone. Virtually the resolution.
Oh. It's on the bottom. Bottom of the last page. If you want. Yeah.
My parking. My parking.
Like doing the and stuff on
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be hot in here.
No ambiguity there.
We have a lot of buttons at public health, so. My favorite says, thanks, science.
Science Times Person of the Year for the millennium, maybe.
We're just repeating the CDC now. CDC recommends.
Recommendation.
It's yesterday and today they can they do double duty, right? Because they the smoke. It's like,
Right,
it's like,
yeah.
hey, yeah, I'm gonna
No, it doesn't filter to
no, well, it feels like it.
unless you.
No.
No.
There's a purpose to the smoke.
Oh, darn it. See, I had that.
You need your N95.
Oh. That's not fun.
Unhealthy for sensitive people.
Yeah, it changed a couple times today. I'm trying to see if it's gonna be better.
Is that-
in the morning run.
Are we dealing with fires up north and south, just converging, or do we know? I know there's some up around Winthrop, but I don't know. I heard they were pushing up from the south. But I don't know. Like all the way from, like Southern Oregon up there, no, it's bad. Yeah, that was the one that was pretty good.
Just a lot.
But it's doable. Mhm. Well, no, I know. See, everybody.
I like it.
How's that?
Excellent.
Because I don't need this. Just one.
Might for this list.
Well, just for the list. Cool.
Oh, we did, okay.
He walked in the changes. You know, so then- We good? No.
That's on.
We good? Pretty close. Okay, let's get ourselves started. I'd like to welcome everybody. This is the City of Ellensburg City Council meeting for the evening of Monday, August 2nd, 2021. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Miller. Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. If the clerk would call the roll.
Good luck.
Here.
Lamb.
Here.
Milquist.
Here.
Miller.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Tap.
I'm here. Thank you. Before we get started, I just want like to thank Nancy Lilquist for stepping in for me last council meeting. Just because of some family stuff, I wasn't able to cover the meeting. Nancy Goodlow was actually out of town. I thought she did a great job, so I really appreciate it.
Proud like fire learning how to do hybrid.
Well, yeah, it would be, and we would note the length of the meeting that she shared, but we'll see how.
I don't think it was my fault. but-
No, it's all good. The one thing I would note for council, because I did watch it, is again, and I know that staff has talked to us about speaking into the microphone and kind of from the diaphragm. It really is a critical piece for us, for people that are watching the stream to understand and hear clearly what's being said. Even as if you're speaking and you're moving back, or you start speaking from back here and then move forward, it just doesn't give us a clarity, I think, that we're striving for. So I just an observation. But so anyway, with that, I don't believe we had any proclamations this evening, and I see no awards and recognitions. That would move us then to approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda with removal of, I believe, 6D, no, not 6D, excuse me, 6B.
I'm not sure.
Oh.
Okay, let's take a look at it. So what we need to do for the agenda, I believe, 6B is the boards and commissions. We've got to report on that, and I think it's important.
So we're
for
going to have that instead. I just thought it was going on.
No, I think we need just a short report so people understand the process.
It's fine with me.
What I would do is entertain a motion to move the executive session 13. The executive session is solely focused on a review and evaluation of the council's after hearing the candidates speak. If we could move that up to actually would become a new 8. And my thinking there is, doesn't look as if we have anybody at this time for citizen comment, but if we're going to go into the executive session after we've heard the candidates, I'd like to give the citizen comment on non-agenda an opportunity for someone to speak, then go into exec, so that somebody's not waiting for the executive session, then come back out and do citizen comment.
I move approval of the agenda, amending it to move the executive session item 13 to become 8A.
I think just 8 would work with the subsequent items being shifted downward in number. Get a second for that?
Second.
So we have motion and second to approve the agenda, moving executive session 13 to new A and adjusting the subsequent items on the agenda numerically. Is there any further discussion on the agenda? Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye, that motion carries. That brings us then to approval of the consent.
I move approval of consent agenda as presented.
We have motion and second to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I too vote aye, that motion carries. That brings us then to a COVID-19 update where it's 6A in your packet. Maybe not.
I
Go ahead.
want to give something.
You've already given so much.
Indeed. Thank you. Yeah, so I don't actually know if Dr. L is going to join us, but we don't have much of an update outside of, I think, national trends. Our cases are increasing locally, as are hospitalizations and breakthrough cases. CDC recommends that regardless of vaccination status, you wear your mask in indoor public settings, especially if you do not know the vaccination status of others. And locally, Bimart is taking the lead the last couple of weeks for new vaccinations for COVID-19. So go Bimart. End of report.
Great, thank you. So then let's move to 6B. We're in page 92 of your packet. This is board and commission applications, and it will focus more on Parks and Rec commission applications. So who's
I'll speak to this, Mayor. Thank you very much, Heidi Barron-Sternaway, City Manager. We have a good problem in front of us. We have 3 vacancies in the Parks and Recreation Commission. And thank you to our staff who have done a little bit of outreach. We actually have a total of 19 applications for those 3 positions.
Yes.
It is a good problem. So we did have a couple that have dropped out, and rather than introduce 19 people and give everyone 3 minutes to introduce themselves like we typically would have done, we're going to take the recommendation from the council discussion at our last meeting and allow the staff, or excuse me, the council liaison, which was Councilmember Engel and Mayor Tab was stepping in, and then also Lacey, the chair, to interview each of those candidates. And so I think we're down to 14 interviews at this point, and they will bring back a recommendation for appointment at our next meeting.
Thank you. I also want to be clear that if anybody would choose or like to take part in those interviews rather than me as council rep, I'm really open to that. That was overwhelming. Okay, let's move down then to 6C. We're in 127 in our packet. This is the National Night Out. And as Chief Wade's coming to the microphone, I do want to thank everybody who's applied, though, for the Parks and Rec Commission. As Mary indicated, it's just incredible to have this number of applicants for positions. And looking through the applications, if you have in your packet and you get that opportunity, it's clear that there's a passion for those people who've applied to really make the Parks and Rec better, and as a result, the community better. So I really, really applaud everyone who has applied, and we'll come back with those recommendations at the next meeting. Thank you. With that.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ken Wade. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Ellensburg Police Department. And I'm here tonight to speak to you about the National Night Out. It gives me great pride to invite you all to attend personally. 34 years ago, or correction, 38 years ago, National Night Out organization was founded. We're 23 states with 2.5 million people participated. This year, Ellensburg is one of 118 registered cities and counties within the state of Washington alone that is participating in it. This will be our 14th National Night Out. It's going to take place at Memorial Park. There are hamburgers and hot dogs, and they will be cooked by police officers. And I understand my illustrious city manager, her city attorney and city manager will be present, maybe serving too. So we look forward to everybody's participation and showing up. We have vendors, other departments that are going to be there throughout our jurisdiction. CASA will be there, Utopia. And again, this focus this year, as it's been in the past, is child safety and community celebration. So
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Regarding child safety, will you be, in the past, you've done some fingerprinting or
correct.
for kids?
We will have the fingerprinting and the DNA as a take home so that we're limiting the exposure and that the parents can take that with them. We've also taken other precautions with the COVID situation, but we're also going to have a child safety restraint inspection set up. We just recently ran several people through a course, and we have approximately 14 child seats and child booster seats that we can get into the community also.
Public health may have some more.
I greatly appreciate that.
Somewhere there are some bicycle helmets.
We would be happy to distribute them far and wide.
Thanks. I just again want to recognize you and the effort for the Ellensburg Police Department. I had an opportunity to have a conversation with the chief and actually Jason Berthencock, who's the chief at Central. And to me, these are the kinds of activities that we can never put a value on, but are invaluable if there is an incident where a child needs to approach a police officer, where that relationship has been built. It's just these incredible, I think, opportunities. And you have, I mean, I know EPD has done this for years, but the approach that you have taken, and I think for actually the entire department, these are huge to me in terms of the importance for families in our community. And I really appreciate the effort and the energy that goes into it, and your willingness to participate. So thank you.
And thank you, and I'll pass it along to my
Yes,
staff.
please do. Okay, thanks. Again, that's tomorrow, actually, at 6 o'clock in Memorial Park, which is also shaded, we would note, with picnic tables and grass. So that brings us then to 6D. This is the City Council Position 6 applications and interviews. Do we want to do you want to do a lead staff report? We haven't worked this out clearly.
Yeah, so with council member Engel's resignation, we posted the opening for the month of July. We received 7 applications in response. All of those individuals were invited to tonight. We have one person attending remotely. I believe we have the rest of the folks in the audience here. We did have one candidate that pulled out. Casey Ross showed up earlier this evening and respectfully declined the interview. And thank you for the opportunity. We have actually we've developed 5 questions and the candidates have received those questions in advance and you have those in your packet as well. So I guess I would turn it back to the mayor to continue.
Great, thank you. And again, I want to thank everyone who applied. Council for helping put the questions together, Heidi and as the city manager and Terry, city attorney, and helping coordinate those. I would just note as we're going through this that there are time constraints on each one of the questions. There are 5 questions. So we will kind of keep a time. I will be a timekeeper on that. We'll just walk through the list here. I'm seeing fewer bodies in the audience than there are applicants, and I know that we have one individual who has applied, who has to do this remotely because he's on a family vacation. And there he is. That's
hello.
So with that, let's get ourselves started. So the first question is, please tell us about yourself and why you would like to serve on city council. And you have 2 minutes. With Matt. Yeah, I said, I'm so sorry. I was just going to work through because it looked like it was done alphabetically. So I was just going to work through the alphabet. So Matt, if you're up first.
Great. Well, first off, thank you. And thank you for making the accommodation to allow me to do this virtually. For those that may not know me, again, my name is Matt Anderson. I'm currently the general manager at the Holiday Inn Express in Ellensburg. Prior to that, I was the facilities director for Kittitas County with oversight of the Kittitas Valley Event Center and the Kittitas County Fair. My wife, Teresa, is a teacher here in Ellensburg. I have 2 sons, one entering high school and the other is going to be a first grader. I've applied for city council because as Ellensburg continues to emerge from the pandemic, I believe it is important that we use a wide range of experience and tools to navigate the recovery. I believe one of the tools that we can leverage effectively is a strong leisure and tourism industry. With 20 years in the hospitality industry, both in the private and public sector, I feel like I've had the insight and experience to help the city navigate the recovery and not falter when we should be advancing. In addition to fostering growth in tourism to help to spur that recovery. As a father, I'm interested in keeping Ellensburg a family-friendly city. Right now, I really feel there is a need for family-friendly activities and facilities. And I also believe we can find a way to fill those needs. It also has the added benefit of creating economic growth for Ellensburg.
Thank you. So let me ask, because we didn't actually work this process through, would council like to have each one of the candidates present answered that question and then move down?
I think that'd be most fair.
Okay, so let's do that then. So Kristen. Yeah, please. And that also puts you on camera.
Oh.
So again, you've got 2 minutes, if you would. Please tell us about yourself and why you'd like to serve on city council.
Wonderful. My name is Kristen Ashley, and I grew up in Ellensburg. I'm very grateful to be not only a person that grew up here, but an American citizen. And because I was so grateful, I joined the military. When I was 19, I joined the Army as a combat medic. I deployed overseas. I went to Iraq. After I came back from the Army, I became civilian again, and I went to Wenatchee. I became a whitewater guide and worked in the emergency department simultaneously. decided that I wanted to study global wine tours or global wine studies, which is basically enhanced agricultural products, which would really benefit our community. And then I also studied tourism management with a minor in sustainable tourism. I graduated summa cum laude. And then I've been working in recreation and tourism. I do see the benefit of tourism, as Matt had mentioned. I also see dangers in tourism. I see cultures that can be drastically affected by the negative effects of that. And so I know it's going to be a careful dance. My goal on the city council would be to stage ourselves for the growth that we're going to have in the future so that we can invite and include the new residents that are coming in to our existing culture and the good things that are part of it, which is, even though we disagree, we're neighbors at the end of the day. As one of my great friends says, we have a pioneer culture here. And at the end of the day, we have each other's back. And I'm hoping that all of our new residents, it's predicted that there's going to be 55,000 of them in the next 10 years for our county, will participate in our culture as well, and that we can welcome them in a way that will encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you. That would bring us to Jason Dennis, who, if I count the bodies in our audience, might not be here. Nor am I seeing him in the attendee list or in the participant list. So Jason Dennis has made application. Oh,
Hands up, Kristen.
Got all that extra time.
you can manage mine. I'm really fine with it. No
Your
ownership.
backup.
So again, Jason Dennis, I didn't see, he would have been in the participant, a panelist, much the same as Matt did if he were doing virtually. Next up then would be Rich Elliott. Please.
It's not going to go 2 minutes. Rich Elliott, 1215 East Seattle Avenue. I have been a resident of Kittitas County now for about 25 years, the city of Ellensburg for 17. I live here with my wife and 2 children, grandson, and actually up until a month ago had 4 generations living inside the city of Ellensburg. I left the city council a little less than 3 years ago, in part to be eligible for the city manager's position. And that has turned out very good for the city. Thank you. So that's no longer an impediment to my serving on council, which kind of explains me coming back. I currently serve as the deputy fire chief for Kittitas Valley Fire and Rescue and have for the last 25 years. I have the unique experience of having been a city employee, a CWU employee. So I see things from both of those perspectives, and I had 7 years on council, in which time I think I established myself as somebody who could listen to the other council members and to the community and make reasoned decisions in the long run. I think that public service is, with all the boards and commissions and things that I'm involved in, is very much ingrained into sort of who I am. I see giving back to the city of Ellensburg, serving on the city council as being an important step. So thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
So next person up would be Josh Hackney, whom again, I do not see as either an attendee or a panelist. Did somebody go out and intimidate people? Well, I know, I've talked to you enough, Kristen, that you would not be intimidated anyway, so it's all good. So if Josh is not here and Casey is withdrawn, that would lead us to Jeff St. John.
My name is Jeff St. John. I'm a 28-year resident of the city of Ellensburg. I'm married with 3 kids, 5 grandkids. I'm a retired police officer from campus. I'm a 31-year service member of both the Army and the Navy. I'm about to retire from the Navy Reserve. I like the opportunity to serve as council member because I have the time now. I didn't have the time before. I was kind of busy. I'm a combat veteran, and that's about it. There's more to me, but I want to keep it short.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, then that brings us to the second question. There's a minute and a half for each one of these for this question. Let's again, let's work. Actually, I should have just, Jeff, why don't you come back up and we'll start with you on this one so that. So the question is, if there were one project or area of emphasis you would like to see the city focus on over the next 4 years, what would it be and why?
I say stuff for families, like the Family Aquatic Center, because judging by driving around Ellensburg, I'm seeing a bunch of criminal activity. I patrolled the streets of Ellensburg. And Ken or Chief Wade knows. We're seeing an uptick of kids with too much time on their hands. Excuse me. I would like to see something for kids to keep them out of trouble. When kids don't have nothing to do, you miss you. The reason why I'm shaking is I have Parkinson's. I apologize.
No. We're just making sure that you have the opportunity to say everything you need to within the minute and a half, truthfully.
So and then that would be my answer to that question too.
Thank you. So then that brings us back up to Rich.
So I struggled with this one. And the reason I did is because I don't think that 4 years ago, anybody could have predicted where we would be today. And so I don't think that there is necessarily an issue that I would walk into with council with a particular emphasis, other than the concept of livability. And livability has to do with what Jeff just referred to, the idea that, all of the pressures that are occurring at the state and national level are going to make it difficult for us to recruit the right kind of police officers in the community. I think economic development, we don't know the full effects of COVID, and there are still, government securities that are going to be removed, and we don't know what's going to fail. We know we are going to get pressure from particularly the Seattle area in terms of development with the ability to telecommute. So that growth is going to occur. How it's going to occur and in what form and fashion, so that again, it doesn't take away from what is the city of Ellensburg, is going to be critical. I think the park infrastructure is going to be significantly taxed, and how to pay for that. I think we have a significant behavioral and mental health issue in this community. And to this point, the county has been unwilling to address it. And I don't think the city's in the same position as the county. But if I had to focus on, the most likely impending crisis, it's going to be behavioral and mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. So then, Kristen. And again, I'll be more than glad to repeat the question if you.
Excellent. I appreciate it. This answer I was going to be a little bit more concise on, but can I take a little bit more time for question 4, as there's 3 pretty heavy topics? It's
if-
okay. The answer can be no.
Well, let's get through this and we'll see where
Okay.
we are.
Excellent.
I'm not gonna-
All right. So I really appreciate what the other candidates had to say, and I totally agree that we need more activities for people that are under 21 in our community and especially in our city. But my idea was a little bit different. I believe that I would like to see a mentorship program developed in the next 4 years for our city council and for government in general, for not only the high schools. I'd like to work with the school districts, but CWU as well. I think that we would get a lot more ideas. And I recently talked to someone that successfully went through a high school program where they were challenged to change a city policy or city ordinance as high school students. And some of them successfully did it and got stop signs installed at intersections that had been overlooked. And so I think that there's a lot of possibility for growth. And I think that we could possibly train the people that would replace us on the city council in the future, which would give us sustainable growth and change in our local government. Anyways, that was an idea that I had for the next 4 years.
Thank you. That would bring us to Matt.
sorry, flipping back and forth is a little cumbersome. If there was one project, so I believe intangibles, the things I can see, hear, and feel. Now, just over 2 years ago, the city partnered with the chamber on a marketing and tourism plan for the city. The chamber was poised to move forward and advance an ambitious plan, seemed to have support by the city, the county, as well as CWU and other stakeholders. So for me, I guess I need to play to my strengths, and that's what I would like the city to pick up that ball and keep running with it. I want to see our Parks and Rec department light up the fields at Rotary Parks so we can have baseball and softball tournaments. Right now, I'm on the city lodging tax committee, and I'm ready to use lodging tax dollars to put forward an ad campaign that will highlight downtown and CWU, and as well as our partners outside the city, who we receive direct benefit from for the endeavors that they pursue. And I'm thinking of the ranch, the Canyon River, and those types of things. Like I said, I think you've made it clear. I think my strengths are live. I truly believe we can use our position within the state to promote both leisure and business tourism. I'm a strong believer in that when I campaigned for this position 2 years ago, and I believe it's just as important, if not more important now, to use that advantage. Recovery is happening now. The hotels are full. Most of them are this last weekend are full, and we just want to keep that ball moving forward.
Thank you. Great, thanks. So let's move on. How about if we do next, Rich, do you want to start the next question? Yeah, I am. So this is, again, a minute and a half. What would you propose the city do to increase public engagement in decision-making, such as commenting on plans, projects, priorities, and policy changes? Again, for a minute and a half.
I think largely our communication with the public follows an older, decades-old model in terms of announcing it in the newspaper, in terms of mailing out notices of particular decisions that affect geographic regions, those type of things. I think that we can build a database through social media, through electronic messaging that basically says, what types of issues are you interested in, and communicate to those community members, those business owners, early on in the process, and then they can opt to send in their comments electronically when that's appropriate, and in person when that's mandated, or in person if they choose to do so. And I think having a sort of a perpetual refreshed list of the people that are interested, in addition to meeting the legal requirements, would help. People don't have the same kind of engagement that traditionally they used to.
Great, thank you. Jeff, why don't we drop down to you on this next?
I'm going to echo what Rich says. Social media outreach. Asking councilperson a question a week, month, something daily people, something that's important to the people. Because there's times when I had no idea what you guys were doing.
There's times when we don't know.
Well, that's good.
Just
So, I guess social media outreach. So that's okay, because who knows?
Thank you. I'm glad. Thank you for helping me keep track.
Yes, I agree. Social media is something that we're severely lacking in for city council. We need to have some kind of Facebook page. I understand that it's not a professional area where people can give their feedback, but at least putting the issues up there would be great. And giving stakeholders the opportunity to know which meetings have which issues. Also, there are certain cities where the mayor will have coffee. There's a coffee day a month, or where the entire city can get around and just ask questions and learn things. And I think that you learn a lot about your community if you go to the farmer's market, and we could just rotate ourselves if we felt like we had the time. Not saying that you guys aren't all strapped for time, but it just allowing the public opportunities to see us and stop us when we're out and about. And so I think that those would all be great ways of increasing public awareness. But yeah, social media definitely is a good way.
Great, thank you. I think then we'll go to Matt.
So when I was answering this one, I found it curious that the word engagement was used. Unfortunately, council meetings aren't very engaging at all. By design, they're rigid and formal and really have little time for public comment. I've watched several council meetings and have sat there. It's often very hard to hear. And Bruce, you alluded to it earlier, when you're watching, especially the older ones on ECTV, the streaming, the sound is really tough. I think before we can expect to increase public engagement with the council needs to take a few more steps to engage with the public, both directly and indirectly. Simple things indirectly, such as timestamping the recorded meeting so that would correspond to an agenda item that a person would have interest in, or take a more direct approach. During the meetings or public hearings, we take a lot of public comment, but there's often not a time to hear what the council is thinking in regards to the comments that were heard. Even if council focused on one particular comment or one question, I believe public would then have a better understanding of where each council member stands. Right now, I don't feel like that exists. Then I would echo what everyone else has said. We have other technology tools out there, various social media that can all be put into place, as well as an updated website.
Great, thank you. So that's going to bring us down to question 4. I think
Should we increase the time for everyone?
that's what I was going to do. I think we'll just bump them up to 2 minutes.
We lost 3 people.
Yeah, and I would actually agree. When I looked particularly at that question, each one of those probably could be a topic that we would want to hear from somebody that would potentially be appointed. So I think at a minimum, we can certainly bump it up to 2 minutes. Let's see, who would I start with now? Would that be Chris? I think Kristen. Okay, so again, just as you're coming up, the question: what do you think that the city's role can be in addressing economic development, affordable housing, and building an inclusive community? You may respond to all 3 areas or address one that is the most important to you. And again, it indicates 1.5 minutes in our packet, but
Thank
you'll have 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. All 3 of those things are very important to me. As far as economic development goes, I know that we already have a business incubator that we are focusing on, and that is an awesome project. I would like to see a commercial kitchen. I know that Fish Food Bank is thinking about developing something like that. I would love to partner with them if we could somehow get that so that local farmers and ranchers could pay a small fee in order to rent that commercial kitchen so that they could make enhanced agricultural products. And then we could possibly stage ourselves for a year-round farmers market, and they would benefit in November and December when people are spending the most money in their communities for gifts. And so I think that would be great for economic development. As far as affordable housing, I know that we have already approved the Water Bender project with Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity I've volunteered with. They're a great organization to partner with. You guys are amazing. That being said, they're on the edge of our community and they're not really within walking distance of a grocery store from what I know. I would like to see more affordable housing that is closer to grocery stores and closer to the downtown area, and also interspersed with more wealthy properties. I know that a lot of seniors are not able to afford their property taxes any longer because our property values are going up. I've even had a couple of them cry to me. That being said, I believe that we could help them by partnering with Habitat for Humanity to purchase the property from underneath their home so that they only would have to pay taxes for the house itself. But that's just an idea. I actually have to do more research on that. And then as far as the inclusivity, I think that we already have the Diversity, Equity, Inclusivity Committee. I was looking at minutes. They seem to be making amazing progress. I think that we are staging ourselves for a very successful future. I know that our goal is to include as many people as possible. My personal goal would be to go out with an interpreter to our Hispanic communities who I don't see downtown very often and ask them what would bring them downtown. What do they want to see? And that is it.
That's time. That was well, a lot of words very quickly. That was good. Thank you. Let's move to Matt. because I think somehow you ended up being the last one, but on the last two questions.
All right, thank you. When looking at these three topics, you're right, these are very large topics, and it was very hard to think of a minute and a half answer to hit them. As a relatively recent home buyer, I can personally attest to the challenges of finding affordable housing. Fortunately, my family, we're in a position to be flexible and do some different things, but I realize not everybody has that benefit. For the better part of 4 years now, council has been looking for ways to increase the affordable housing within Ellensburg. If I had to pick out of the three here, that would be a priority of mine as well. I'd look to streamline the programs already in place, free up dollars and other incentives to make them a reality, as well as to continue to advance the projects that are in motion now. When stacked up against these other two topics, population growth is imminent. We need to act now. Economic growth can and will happen with or without council assistance. Inclusivity is certainly important, but it can be much more of a social movement than a political one. But out of the three here, affordable housing needs the aid of a municipality to be successful. So that's the one that I would focus on of the three.
Great. Thank you. So let's go Jeff and then Rich.
I'm not going to echo what everybody else said. I believe economic development coupled with affordable housing is the way to go. We got to have the jobs so people can afford the houses. And that's about it.
Okay. The alarm didn't go off.
To the point.
Thank you. Rich? Sure. What do you think the city's role can be in addressing economic development, affordable housing, and building an inclusive community?
So I may have taken a little different take on this question than the other candidates. So first of all, I don't think that the city is capable. And when I say city, I think most people, are looking at the services and the staff that are available and your job to represent the community. And so you throw that term city around, and I don't think we fully appreciate what it is. And it starts with the staff, hiring the right people, giving them the right parameters, giving them the right tools to allow economic development, affordable housing, and to support diversity and inclusivity. And I think that without community support, staff support, and council alignment, none of those things happen. And so the city's role is to set the tone. It is to reduce the roadblocks to affordable housing. It is to entice the right kind of economic growth. It is to set, very clear ideas on what diversity and inclusivity looks like and hold the city, to those standards in terms of as an employer and also as a place to live. And so that's what I think the city's role is. You can't make any of those happen independently. So.
Thanks. Okay, that brings us then to the last question. Matt, we'll start with you on this one. This is number 5. We got a minute and a half. As a council member, how would you handle a situation in which a segment of the city's population was adamant that council take an action that you believe is not in the best interest of the city?
Sure. So taking a few assumptions here, assuming that I've listened and heard the portion of the city that wanted to take a particular action, and I've listened and I've heard from the staff and other stakeholders on their position on said action, and I still believe that it's not in the best interest of the city, I would not take the action. Having said that, we then look to see on what we could do or not do, depending on the case. As a council member, I believe it's important we articulate why or why not we choose to do certain things. I don't believe it's our position, should be our position to change the mind of people, but at the very least, they should know where we stand. Lastly, I believe a decision needs to be made one way or another. I don't like stagnation, and I would hope to address any issue as it comes up with a timely fashion and get a resolution to the people involved one way or another.
Great, thank you. Kristen?
So again, there's so many variables, But first, I would ask more questions. How large of a segment of the population of the city is wanting this change? And how adamant are they? How much do they know about the situation? And so I would ask more questions of them, understand where they were coming from. And then I would, if it was an ethical dilemma, I may have to step down if I didn't feel like I could properly represent the population. If it wasn't an ethical thing, if it was something that I had good research behind my back and I had great mentors that told me this will harm my city, then I would try to reason with the population of people and educate them the way that I had been educated so that they could hopefully see things the way that I had been trained or educated. And then if they wouldn't be reasoned with, then I would make whatever decisions that I was able to agree with all of the staff were the very most beneficial for not only our generation, but future generations to come so that I wouldn't feel guilty leaving behind the city. And as I mentioned, if it was a majority of the population that was demanding it, then I may not be the right person to represent them.
Thank you. Rich?
So I think I would start off with making sure I not only hear and listen to the people who are trying to make their point, but also understand where they're coming from. My experience in local government, and I've worked in local government for 34 years, is that the issues that tend to be the most, and emotional may not be the right word, but the issues that people feel the strongest about are often those issues where there are sometimes indistinguishable nuances in the action that we may be taking. Government is bureaucracy. I mean, by definition, we're a bureaucratic agency, and there are limits to what we can and can't do, both financially and from a rulemaking perspective. And so sometimes what's popular isn't possible. And I would vote in what I believe to be the best interest of the city long-term, every single time, and I'll explain that.
Thank you. Excuse me. Jeff?
I suppose most decisions aren't time sensitive on the council. So I would take time, weigh the pros and cons of the issue at hand. Check with you guys to see if I'm missing something. If I'm not listening. See if I was way off base or not, or if we need to table the issue and need more information. And my final thought would be sometimes you just gotta tell people no, whether they like it or not.
Great, thank you. I believe that brings us to the end of the questions that we have scripted and this particular segment. What we will do for the folks who have applied, let's go back and just pick up the non-agenda, then we will go into an executive session, which I'll announce in a moment, for an initial period of about 15 minutes. If we're able to come to a conclusion at that point, we'll come. If we need more time, we'll announce it. So before we go into exec, is there anybody in the audience or online who would like to comment on non-agenda issues, items which are not on the agenda? Seeing no one, then we will now move to an executive session to evaluate the qualifications of candidates for appointment to the elective office. Note that we would anticipate action coming out of that executive session, which would be the appointment of one of the candidates to position 6 on city council. So with that, let's go into exec. Do you want to take a break first for 5, or you want to just go?
Do it.
Okay, so 15 minutes. I've got 7:46. We'll be out about 8:01. Everybody would expect that. Okay, it is 8:01, so we're back in session. We've come out of our executive session. what I would like to do now is simply open it to council for observations, comments. Before we begin, I would just frame it by thanking all of the individuals who have applied, taken the time to respond to the questions, and shown an interest in serving this community. It's an important task and it's truly, truly appreciated. So again, thank you. With that, I'll open it up for comments and observations from council.
Can I start with
You
just,
Certainly, you may.
I was just thinking about the council member that we are replacing with Stacy, right? And that's a very positive and productive voice, and someone who's also very willing to disagree. And those are things that we value, and things that we would like to keep on council. So it was really easy to, in all four of the candidates, find something, to find young creative ideas and find an appreciation of tourism and economic development. I think that's all I was going. We were looking for a candidate who can provide the voice and but also be in line, be aligned with our vision moving forward in the city.
Thanks. Anyone else?
I think that's well put.
Except for the stumbling.
That was good. Well, not hearing anything then. What we will now do then is pass out ballots. This is a majority vote. Clearly, there are 6 of us. So if there's a tie, we will revote. Actually, we'll pass it down when we do choose a winner, that individual would be sworn in this evening and take that seat without a name tag to show that we had no predisposition. I think we just pass it down.
Councilmember Tad votes for Elliott. Councilmember Goodloe votes for Rich Elliott. Councilmember Lamb votes for Rich Elliott. Councilmember Lilquist votes for Elliott. Councilmember Miller votes for Elliott. Councilmember Morgan votes for Elliott.
So, well, if anyone heard that last sound, that I think was Rich.
I think, I just want to say, I think that what you're saying is a vote for an experienced council member, someone who has experience in the position that can hit the ground running. For myself, that was the tipping factor. And I, having worked with Rich, I know that we can count on him to state his mind and disagree with what he disagrees with, and to put the energy into the position.
Yes, Steve?
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to thank the others of you that applied. I think it's important, and I'm grateful that you did consider running. It's important. We often end up with races being 1 or 2 people, or not even a race, just somebody just refiles and that's it. It would be really nice to have the races be competitive. I'm with Nancy. I wanted someone that could hit the ground running. I'm leaving at the end of this year, so we're going to have at least 1 new council person in this position, and it's a lot to learn in a very short amount of time, and we've got a pretty heavy load right now.
To echo Councilmember Morgan's, I'm surprised. I mean, Yay, nothing. No offense, Rich, but I'm surprised that all of our votes were for Rich because we had a lot of conversation about everybody's pros and what they could bring to council. So yeah, keep doing it. The con that comes with the selection of an experienced candidate is that we would really like more people to have opportunities to come to the dais. So keep working on it.
So with that, what process?
Where,
And then- So Rich, if you come forward.
I, Rich Elliott, solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and the state of Washington and the laws and ordinances of the city of Ellensburg. I will faithfully, honestly, and impartially perform the duties of the office of city council member, city of Ellensburg, Washington.
And again, congratulations, Rich, and thank you to all that applied. Well, yeah, just yes, fine. We'll figure it out. Yeah, we're good. No, we'll do that.
No, he's right
We
there.
don't even have to.
EG.
Oh, so that's why we did that. Sorry.
I think everyone would have,
Would have fit in it.
except Jeff would have
Yeah.
qualified to sit up there.
Okay, let's move on then. We don't have any business requiring a public hearing this evening. We are on 9A then. We're on page 158. This is a resolution to revise a pay plan.
Good evening, council. I'll present this. Heidi Berensternaway, city manager. From time to time, we amend the city's pay plan. Generally, we do this with our budgets. And the last amendment was actually made effective July 1st. We had one position, and we look at compensation for all of our positions when we do pay plan amendments. From time to time, we find that we are behind in a position. With our recent retirement of our HR director, we've had some pretty significant challenges getting qualified candidates, and we've had actually 2 declines on offers based on the salary schedule. So we went out and did another salary survey and looked at our compensation package for our human resources director, and we were behind in our comparable cities. So our recommendation is, and this is consistent with other cities as well, to change the pay grade for the human resources director position more in alignment with the community development director. We always want to look at equity in how we pay our employees, and this is consistent with what other cities, the compensation ranges for other cities as well. So this is the only change to the salary schedule. And it would be staff's recommendation to approve the revised pay plan before you.
Thank you.
So I had a question on the, so the position was 16% below market is what you were indicating. Where would we be with the proposed adjustment? Is it, I missed that detail. I see the numbers, but where in percentage terms would we be? Would we be exactly at market? Or did I miss it?
We would be in that similar range. So this moves us up to that.
Up,
range.
yes, but are we at, I mean, are we right there? Are we still?
We
chasing it?
are right there.
Okay,
Yeah. So
okay.
again, we look at ranges, we look at mid ranges, and then we look at lows and highs,
Okay.
and they're never exactly the same. So what we do is try to hit them at least the mid range.
Okay, so it gets us, okay.
Other questions?
I move we adopt resolution number 2021-23.
Second.
A motion second to adopt resolution 2021-23, amending the pay plan. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
I
By two vote aye, that motion carries. Thank you. That brings us then, we have no unfinished business. This brings us to 11A. We're on page 163 in our packet. This is the 2021 second quarter financial status and investment report.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor, Jerica Pasco, Finance Director, and welcome back, Rich. I want to start out by saying it is past my bedtime, but I did anticipate this council meeting tonight going a lot longer. So I really appreciate how quick you guys were earlier, and I'm excited that it's only 8 and not 10. So I'll get started.
That
Beginning
doesn't give you extra time, Jerica.
Oh, no. Beginning on page 167 of your agenda are the 2021 second quarter financial status and investment reports for the period ending June 30th of 2021. The second quarter 2021 reports were presented to the Finance Committee at the July 22nd meeting. This report does continue to attempt to update the fiscal impact projections created by the current pandemic situation. Year-end projections were made as of the current situation on 6/30 of 2021, and projections were predicated on remaining open as we are now through year end. Let me share my screen if I can. Can you see that? Okay. So on table 1, I want to note first off that the note underneath table 1 says that the information are actuals through March, and that should actually say actuals through June and projections through June. General fund expenditures are expected to come in below budget as required. The budgeted expenditures reflected all adjustments that were taken to council for approval prior to April 5th. Revenue projections were done on an individual basis and will be discussed further in report. Please note that additional requests and adjustments have been taken to council since April 5th, and those expenditures are not reflected in the budget or in the projected columns. Keeping in mind that the budget process began last summer during the height of COVID, and numbers were submitted in November during the continuous times of change and uncertainty. Therefore, we did budget very conservatively, and a lot has happened since these budgets were built. We will be coming to you next month with our mid-biennial review and a supplemental budget adjustments. Table 2 shows year-to-date revenue remitted from the state, Washington State sales tax activity. So because of the effects of COVID-19 restrictions on 2020 numbers, we have added 2019 numbers to many of our charts for comparison. Revenue from the state was up 22% over second quarter of 2020 and up 13% over 2019. You can note that the hotel motel lodging tax is still below the 2019 numbers, as well as the marijuana excise tax. And the motor vehicle fuel tax, you'll see, is our slowest increase over 2020 and is still under our 2019 collections. Table 3 shows all of our governmental funds tax revenues. The overall governmental fund tax revenues are projected to come in at approximately 1.29 million, or 8.18% over budget. Again, the utility and hotel motel taxes are still expected to be the hardest hit governmental fund tax revenue, and the hotel motel tax revenue was budgeted at 62% of 2019 and did come in 2020 at 61.19 or 15% of 2019. It currently sat at the end of second quarter at about 78% of 2019. Table 4 breaks down the difference of the budgeted less projected by the tax purpose. It's important to note that this includes the retail sales and use tax that's restricted for public transit, public safety, and affordable housing purposes. The sales tax revenue received in January is for November of 2020 activity, and we use the average sales tax over the past 6 months in order to project through year end. Budgets were set at 95% of 2019 actuals. The sales tax is projected to come in close to $1 million over budget. We continue to see a trend brought on in 2020 with COVID shutdowns. It appears that even though local spending was down, internet sales were up, and with the destination and delivery based sales tax method, we still receive sales tax for those online sales. You might also note that the bottom line there under the retail sales housing, the state credit, we currently have the projection equal to the actual. That was because we didn't receive payment in June, and we weren't sure why. And we have discovered since then it's because of the fiscal year end for the state. So they said we had received all our money for the credit for the year. So we will start receiving money then in June for their new fiscal year. And we will update the budget number with the supplemental budget at the next council meeting. Table 5 shows the year-to-date sales tax by activity. January through June of 19 in comparison to January through June of 2020 was fairly flat overall with slight decrease. However, the first 6 months of 2021, we saw a rebound with large gains in most of the areas. The real estate and rental leasing category showed the highest percentage increase, with retail trade showing the highest dollar increase. Regular retail sales tax had a 22% overall increase over the same period last year, with a 14% increase over 2019. And again, these revenues are for sales from November through April. A few areas such as accommodation and for food services, education services, and manufacturing are still below the 2019 numbers. Table 6 shows utility tax activity. So overall, our utility tax revenue is up 4.67%, or approximately $83,000 over second quarter 2020. The gas receipts are up due to that sale of natural gas storage reserves. So in February, the city sold fixed natural gas contracts and storage reserves in the Rocky Mountain Basin and backfilled with lower cost gas from the north. The sale amounted to $2.5 million in net proceeds to the natural gas utility. This increased an additional $150,000 in utility taxes to the city. The decrease in water and sewer is caused by the increase in outstanding utility bills. With the continuation of the governor's orders, the total number of past due accounts and their balances have continued to increase in all of our utilities. The number of past due accounts has tripled, and the past due balances are over 7.25 times what they were in June of 2020. Table 7 shows general fund revenues and expenditures, the budgeted versus actual. It does not include the sales tax reserve fund or other managerial funds of the general fund. Just noting the areas where we are coming in under budget for revenues. The first area is the licenses and permits at $264,000 under budget. Currently, that looks like building permits are still down, but a lot of this has to do with timing of the project and when people apply for their permits. We are also down in the charges for fees by about $321,000, and that is due to the recreation programs and a lot of recreation programs that we haven't done and still aren't doing right now because of COVID. Fines and forfeits are also down close to 100,000, and that has to do with the late fees and door tags that we are unable to collect right now. But however, the revenue is still projected to come in slightly above budget, or by around $27,000. Then you can see on the last column, 3/4 of the way down, the total expenditures are expected to come in under budget. Again, we'll be doing a mid-biennial review with budget adjustments at our next council meeting. So overall, on the second column, you'll see that right now the general fund's expected to increase fund balance by approximately $32,000 at the end of the fiscal year. Table 8 shows our debt activity, and there has been no additional debt since the first quarter. So what we see in June were interest only payments, and then in December we'll see principal and interest payments. I did want to note that about halfway down under the interfund loan, we have our City Hall construction bond, and we did pay that off in July. So next quarter you'll see that gone. The City Hall is officially paid off finally.
Can we celebrate?
Yeah. We did
That went pretty fast.
we did replace those debt numbers starting next year with the public safety building remodel. So it'll just be a short reprieve. The next page, the table on the next page shows revenues and expenditures actual that the city brought in approximately 10.5 million more than it's spent so far in 2021. However, 4.97 million of the excess of revenue over expenses is from the utility and the internal service funds. An additional 2.9 million of that is also money that we've already received for the American Recovery Act funding. It should note that the general fund is up 363,000 before that amount that we've received for the American Rescue Plan Act funding. And the cells highlighted in blue again are the managerial funds of the general fund. And I'd probably also note down there under enterprise funds that a large portion of this again is the gas is up over 3 million, and that's due to the $2.5 million gas cell. And then we have our investment reports. The city had 61.8 million in excess cash invested as of the end of second quarter. 48.3 million of that was in the LGIP, which had a gross earnings rate of 0.0804%, so really low percent. We had approximately 13.5 million in other investments, which earned approximately $24,000 of interest in June. And staff recommends council accept the second quarter status, financial status and investment reports as presented. Any questions?
Thank you. Council questions?
I move that we approve the financial report.
Second.
A motion and second to accept the 2021 second quarter financial status and investment report is presented. Is there any further discussion?
I do have a question. So I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around taxing that gas sale that felt like it was bonus, but it still is taxed, but it's different. It's in, we weren't selling it to customers.
So we did follow up with the Department of Revenue on that and had them give us a written ruling on how they looked at it, and it was still considered a utility gas sell, and we were still required to charge our city as well as state utility taxes on that.
So what did we net, I guess?
So we netted 2.5 million was the difference between what we purchased it for and what we sold it for. And then of course we paid the general fund about 150,000 in the city utility tax fund, and I would have to look to see what we ended up paying the state in that.
Okay.
Question? Motion second to accept the financial report or status and investment reports. All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. The motion carries. Thank you. That actually brings us to the manager's report.
Once again, good evening, council. I have just 3 requests for 3 public hearings. I don't know if you want me to do these one at a time. The first one is for the Stewart Meadows plat that's on Bender Road, and asking for the council to set a public hearing for that plat. The second one is also a hearing for the 2021 to 2026 Transit Development Plan and Annual Report, requires a public hearing. And the third is a public hearing for the supplemental budget, as Director Pasco mentioned. These would be to adopt the changes that you've already adopted through individual actions and adopt those into the supplemental budget for 2021.
Good, thank you. So council, I'd entertain a motion to set public hearings for the for, as outlined in the manager's report.
I so move.
Second.
We have a motion second to set the public hearings as outlined in the manager's report, all of which would be at our August 16th, I think.
Yes.
Yes, meeting. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I too vote aye. That motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to council reports. We'll start, I've got to do it, right? Go for it. Councilmember Elliott.
I got nothing.
Okay, let it be noted. It won't happen again. Want to do the park and rec interviews? So-
Oh, he's liaison by
Well,
default,
by
right?
default, right, I'm just.
Okay.
Read the body language, we're all good. Let's go to Nancy.
I have no report.
Kristen,
No report.
oh my goodness gracious. Go ahead.
I'll report then.
Thank you so much.
We didn't report last time. either. The Environmental Commission kind of did a review of the SEPA process, and it was mostly educational for those members. But the request was that they get more feedback. What happens to their comments? You know, just does that get into the recommendations to the developer? And we also talked about the Helena proposed bike lanes and parking issues and the design of the new Helena street. Also attended the rec forum, which is a broader group. Kittitas County is exploring real estate excise tax to the second quarter to fund their parks and recreation and open space plan, which includes trails is kind of their focus. And the land managers were talking about fire closures, and Division of Fish and Wildlife is working on a statewide recreation strategy as well. So that's, I guess, just coming up. The Yakima Basin Fish and Wildlife Recovery Board canceled its scheduled tour for this Wednesday, which was going to be down in Benton County, which I guess is pretty much exploding with COVID, or it's higher than it is here anyway. And so they made the call not to meet in person, but we will be evaluating already been evaluated, but there's 11 projects for funding in this grant round for salmon recovery funds, and we'll be forwarding those onto the state. So there's a lot of good projects for that. So to you, David.
I attended the finance committee meeting, which we had a full report on, so I won't repeat that. So I have a lot of meetings were actually canceled in last month. Our committee meetings. So, attended the vacation time.
County lodging tax had a meeting and did a distribution of 1,000, was it roughly? Oh, you got it. I think it was about 21,000, and it was kind of funds that had been returned because the events didn't happen and things like that. So we up-funded some things that were already in the works to happen and that maybe hadn't gotten their full funding, so we funded them. I've been sort of sitting on one for a while, and that has to do with KitCom, our 911 service. And I unfortunately won't be on that board at the end of after the end of this year, but KitCom is coming up with financial need, and we are going to have to address it. And so I want the council to know that it's coming. How it's going to get addressed is being worked on. I don't think we can go on doing it in the sort of antiquated way we've been doing it, which is by call volume. It's really not working. It's it's not generating the funds that we need to do what we need to do. We really need to expand our call center. Our new manager is actually, I mean, he's the kind who goes in and things go crazy because he keeps his scanner on, and he has gone in several times now when we've had alarms go off, multiple alarms, then more multiple alarms, which could speak to this, but they've really had a hard time pulling enough people in to really manage the comm center. It gets pretty crazy in there. And they've handled it, but it's been very stressful and very tiring. So, you know, we're going to have more than what we currently have in terms of staff. We're going to have new equipment, which we've known is coming for a long time. And with the state having used the 911 funds for so many years as a slush fund that they borrowed from, we're short. And so be prepared. It's coming down the pike. And we aren't prepared for it. And there were some shortfalls that didn't get addressed in the budgeting process. And so we had to dip into our reserve funds pretty heavily. So we're trying to rebuild that fund right now, but it's going to be hard this year. Anyway, that's my news.
Thank you. Just a couple updates, actually. Heidi, city manager, worked on getting language inserted into an agreement with the TIP and the county that has been accepted by TIP Strategies for specific to the city of Ellensburg. It actually was not pushback at all. And so that now will move, well, actually, we'll start negotiations for an interlocal, I think is the thing that we're using with the county. But just in terms of time frame, the last conversation with the folks from TIP and the county would be that they would start toward the end of September, work October, and probably with a final product and report in March, I think it was. So not quite as quickly as I might hope, but certainly the process is rolling forward. I want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. Had the opportunity to attend the welcoming party for the CWU press. Actually, a number of you were there, I think. Tristan, and I saw there, Heidi. It was actually a nice event, good representation for both the community as well as the central community. I think it was. I think we've started a positive relationship, particularly over the last few years, and then I really feel a commitment from the new president, Dr. Wolfert, to continue that conversation and also that commitment.
I was quite impressed with him.
Yeah, it's freaked me out because he had a speech written out, but I got over it. The other thing we're just kind of anyway, moving right along, we're also beginning to coordinate with an entity called All Aboard Washington, and I'm only mentioning that because you may see a resolution coming in front of us. They work on passenger rail service. If you're tracking the infrastructure package that's at the federal level, there's money called out specifically for rail. So we want and need to understand what we might do federally to facilitate that conversation. So that's looking at, I think it's August 21st, that we'll meet with those folks. The other thing, I did attend the Chamber Governmental Relations Committee. I think one of the things for us to recognize, I don't know what mailing list, email list you're on, but there's this spigot flowing right now out of the feds that's just crazy. I think it must have been 6 or 7 what they call NOFOs that came down just last week. It's almost impossible in terms of tracking. One of the questions I had, Urban Everhart, he does a lot of work at the federal level around streams, but he understands and is really intimate with that process. He believes that a similar process will unfold on the $1 trillion infrastructure. So that it will not simply come down, here's what you need to do to satisfy your blip. they're going to come down as NOFAs or NOFAs or however you want to characterize it in this huge wave. So I think at some point we need to talk about the internal capacity for the city to identify those pots of dollars, and then then the internal capacity to actually write with stupid grants because they're federal and that's not fun. And then the third piece is whether and how we even achieve those objectives if we were to be funded. Because I think we have the potential to see an unprecedented amount of dollars beginning to flow, particularly around infrastructure for this community. And we are still, as Jerica pointed out, sitting on the first pot of dollars, the 2.9, and then ultimately it's 4.3 for this community. Which I have no idea. Notice of fund opportunity. No, well, that's the NOFA, which is what I always did, but now they're no
Thank you.
folks. That's good. Thank you. So anyway, I think we just, yeah, opportunity. So again, I mean, they're still thinking, and the last read I heard out of Washington was that will not probably be passed until October. But I think we need to start having those conversations as a city to position ourselves, whether it's sharing resources with the county or however that might look. But it's a big deal. It's an opportunity. It probably won't come again for a significant period of time.
Mayor, speaking to the county, looking into having a grant writer manager.
I would need to work with the city manager to look at our own capacities and how that might work. But I think one framing could be sharing a resource with the county. But I think we still need to look at our internal capacity to actually be able to implement whatever monies might be received. Because there's the administrative oversight that occurs with that money, as well as just how do you hit the streets and then manage contractors and yeah. So it's, I mean, so anyway, it's just one of those things. It's not one of those things, but it is a thing, and it's unique.
I was going to say, it's also one of the challenges, if you're fortunate enough to find the funding, is to actually find qualified people you can hire.
No, that's
I mean, in terms of administrative engineering and whatever.
I mean, all of those pieces. I think, community development right now, if you just look at what's in the pipelines, is getting slammed. If we did certain things and community development becomes that fluent for permitting or whatever it might be, how do we manage that? And how do we manage that in a reasonable way? And how do we not impact and have those conversations? Anyway, so with that, I think I'm done. Should we go home? Okay, so we're adjourned. Thank you all. Again, thanks for everybody that applied. And